Through one third of the season so far, how has the PWHL fared in Toronto and elsewhere? Hey everyone, Rob Wong, joined alongside by Mike Ganter of the Toronto Sun, who is covering the PWHL. And Mike, each team has played between 7 to 9 games, with the teams all pretty close in the standings. What are your biggest takeaways from the first month and a bit of the PWHL?
Well, for one, just how successful it's been out of the gate, primarily from an attendance and a sort of a watchability standpoint. They're getting TV numbers, they're getting attendance numbers. They've set two separate Professional Women's Hockey League attendance records, and there'll be a third when Toronto hosts Montreal at Scotiabank Arena. They've already sold out that venue for the February 16th game. So I mean, from that standpoint, everything's been like just success after success. But what's really stood out for me has been the competitiveness of it. Like you said, I mean, there is very little to choose between any of these teams. I mean, I know there's gaps in the standings, and there's reasons for that. But there are, on any given night, all these teams are capable of winning against anybody, and they've shown it. And they're close, and they're entertaining, and I've probably enjoyed it more than I even thought I would, and I was pretty optimistic coming in.
Yeah, it's definitely been a joy to watch a lot of these games. And one thing that has stood out from the beginning was the physicality shown by these players. We've talked before about how, hitting has not really been something we've seen in the women's game internationally as far as, Olympic competitions and such. But in the PWHL, it is welcomed early and often, to say the least. How do you think that's evolved since the start of the season?
Yeah, I was probably even a little more excited about the physicality of the game early on, because it seems like now they may be reining it back in a little bit. I know the women don't want that, but it just, from the way it's being called lately, like those hits along the boards. There was one in the Boston game. Allie Monroe. It was a clean body check along the boards, and it's something that was never called in the first 6, 7 games of the league, and all of a sudden that's being called. So there's still some sort of getting used to the whistle and getting used to how they're going to call it. There is far more than the IHF. Like in terms of the international hockey and the PWHL, there's no comparison. And like I said, the women want it, and they're thriving in it, and it's made the game far more enjoyable for a much bigger cross section of a potential audience.
Lastly, the PWHL trade deadline is reportedly set for March 18th. We haven't seen a whole lot of movement, if at all, so far. But do you expect any of the teams, including Toronto, to be active over the next month and a bit here?
Yeah, I think I think there is going to be action, just because there are holes. Like there are teams that have a lot of defensive depth, and there are teams that have a lot of forward depth, and there are teams that have goaltending depth. And then for all that depth, there are holes elsewhere in the lineups. So I mean, they all want to win. I'm surprised the trade hasn't happened to this point already. I mean, they've been able to trade. It's been weeks now, and none of the GMs have pulled the trigger. I'm a little surprised at that. But I do believe before or heading into the playoffs, you're going to see, heading into that date, you're going to see some bodies switch hands. You've seen a few teams move players off their reserve and onto their active. Toronto did that with Victoria Bach and Jess Jones. Victoria had she'd sort of put things off for the first month so she could finish teachers college, and she's a game changer for Toronto. So they took Jess Jones off the active roster, moved her back to reserve, and put Victoria up. Ottawa had another player, another exchange. They did the same thing. They took a reserve player off of Boston's reserve and put her on their active roster. So we are seeing some changes. It's just we have yet to see a trade, and I think that's just right around the corner.
Yeah, can't wait to see what the first trade is in PWHL history. For all of Mike's PWHL coverage, head over to the Toronto Sun.